now for a quick Devar Torah, and the parsha ends with a major catastrophe for the Jews. You know, like I mentioned, the parsha is named after Balak. The reason the parsha is named after him is he's the instigator. He's the one who's planning to do damage. But he can't do damage because he realizes that the Jews are on a spiritual level. He needs to attack them on a spiritual level. So that's why he hires Bilam, the non-Jewish prophet, as it were. And Bilam cannot curse the Jewish people because no matter what happens, God intervenes and turns the curses into blessings. But one of the things that he reports back to Balak is that one of the interesting things about the way the Jews are living, they're in the way they're living in their huts, they are made in such a way that you cannot look from one hut to the other. The windows don't match, so that there's privacy, that they respect each other's privacy, respect each other's places. And as we know, that's when Balak, dismisses Bilam, says, he can't do the job. And he comes up with a plan. He says, I know now how to get to the Jewish people. I know that the way to get to them is to destroy these divisions between everybody. And he's willing to have the women of that's under him to go and give themselves over. Because remember that one of the things is the Jews are on a high moral level, not just spiritual, but moral. And he knows if he attacks the morality of the Jewish people, he will be attacking the Jewish people. They won't have defenses, but they have to be able to commit the sin. So he sends the women of his country into the Jewish camp. And one of the people who takes advantage of this is the leader of the tribe of Reuven, right? And he is publicly having relations with this woman. Literally, Moses has to take action. He doesn't know what to do. He's stopped because this is such a flagrant violation. You know, it's like sometimes people do something that's so out there, you don't know how to react. And that was the case of Moses. This was so out there, he did not know how to react to it. But it was Pinchas who realized this is a clear and present danger. If I don't do something, it'll lead to something far worse. It's pretty bad as it is, but it'll get worse. You have to stop it in its tracks. And so he picks up his spear and he kills Zimri and the woman. And the point is, and then he's attacked, by the way. Why didn't you take it to Beit Din, to the court? It should have been handled. And God says no. Pinchas, he used zealotry in the right way. Sometimes you have to take action. You can't wait around for the authorities because the authorities are tied up. It'll take years or whatever. Evidence is gathered, this and that. This was an action that had to be taken right away. It reminds me of an incident here in New York in the 30s. It was a problem that the pro-Nazi Germans living in New York were having demonstrations for Nazi Germany. This was before American entry into World War II. This was in the late 30s. And there was a judge here in New York who didn't like the fact they were having these pro-German demonstrations, a Jewish judge, but there was nothing legally he could do against them. So he basically hired the Jewish gangsters of Murder Incorporated to go in and bust bones. He said, listen, you can break their bones and I can get you off on that. If you kill them, that's I can't deal with. But if you just mess them up, and so the Jewish mobsters, yes, they were mobsters and involved in all sorts of criminal activity, but they put their Judaism first, believe it or not. They went into their meetings and broke them up. There's a famous case where they walked into a demonstration where the leaders of the Nazi Bund were speaking from a balcony. They went up to the balcony and threw them off. I mean, literally, they did a lot of, and what happened was, after a while, there were no longer demonstrations of the Nazi Bund because they realized these were Jews who took a stand and would stand up to them. And this is what we have with what Pinchas had to go through. He had to take action. He had to do what he did. If not, it would have led to a major disaster. And therefore, God came down and said, yes, this was a one-off. Pinchas what he did was right, but it was an extreme measure to handle an extreme situation. And we have to realize that. And we have to be aware, though, of our actions. The prophet Micah, which we read tomorrow as well, says that what does God want you to do? To walk in his ways, to be moral and ethical, and to keep the Jewish laws. Okay? Never forget that we have to keep the Jewish laws, which is something that we should all be aware of, something to think about.